The alien king's desperate gamble. The grand chamber of Aralath Prime was filled with tense silence as King Zirith, ruler of the Zanari, stood before the Galactic Council. His towering frame cast long shadows under the crystalline lights, but his expression betrayed his inner turmoil. Before him stood his only daughter, Princess Nyara, her faintly glowing teal skin almost translucent under the weight of the council's scrutiny. Strength and dominance defined the Zanari people, yet Nyara was frail, an anomaly in a species known for its physical prowess. "She cannot lead us, your majesty," spoke an elder counselor, his voice laced with disdain. "The future of the Zanari Empire demands strength, not weakness." King Zirith clenched his fists, his gaze flickering to his daughter. Nyara stood tall despite the whispers that echoed in the chamber, though her slender frame betrayed her fragility. Her golden eyes met her father's briefly, a silent plea not to abandon her. "I will not give up on her," Zirith finally declared, his voice echoing with determination. "There is more to strength than physical might, and I will prove it." The council exchanged skeptical glances. For years, the king had tried everything, genetic enhancements, rigorous diets, and even ancient rituals, to bolster Nyara's strength. Nothing worked. Now, whispers of rebellion simmered in the outer territories. Zirith had to act before his daughter's perceived weakness became his downfall. Then came the rumors. Tales of humans, fragile by Zanari standards but unmatched in adaptability and cunning, had reached the king's ears. If their resilience could conquer hostile worlds, perhaps it could be the key to unlocking Nyara's potential. The solution seemed audacious, even desperate, but Zirith saw no alternative. "Summon the Earthmen," Zirith commanded, silencing the murmurs of discontent. On the other side of the galaxy, Alex Reed chopped wood outside his cabin, the rhythmic thud of the axe the only sound in the serene forest. Once a soldier, Alex had left the chaos of intergalactic wars for the solitude of Earth's wilderness. His life now revolved around repairing old tech, cultivating his small garden, and avoiding the noise of galactic politics. But peace never lasted long. The sleek black craft that landed in his clearing was anything but subtle. Alex watched warily, the axe resting loosely in his hands, as the ship's ramp descended. A Zanari envoy stepped forward, their reptilian features bathed in the craft's eerie light. "Alex Reed," the envoy said, their voice metallic through a translator. "The King of Zanari requires your expertise." Alex raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "I'm retired. Find someone else." "This is not a request," the envoy replied, unfazed. "The king seeks a trainer for his daughter. You are to report immediately." Before Alex could protest further, another figure emerged. Princess Nyara stepped down the ramp, her movements slow as she adjusted to Earth's heavier gravity. Her regal demeanor was tempered by discomfort, and her golden eyes scanned the rugged surroundings with visible disdain. "This is where I'm supposed to learn?" she asked, her tone sharp. Alex crossed his arms, meeting her gaze without flinching. "If you're expecting luxury, princess, you're in the wrong place." Nyara's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. The first day in the cabin was a disaster. Alex's rustic lifestyle clashed violently with Nyara's refined upbringing. Tasks as simple as carrying water left her gasping for air, and climbing the stairs felt like scaling a mountain. Alex watched her struggles silently, his sharp eyes noting her frustration but offering no sympathy. That evening, over a modest meal of roasted vegetables, Nyara finally snapped. "Why am I here?" she demanded, her voice trembling with frustration. "My father sent me to this backwater planet with a human who lives like a savage. What can you possibly teach me?" Alex leaned back in his chair, unfazed by her outburst. "Your father thinks you're stronger than you believe. My job is to prove him right." Nyara scoffed. "You've seen me. I can barely stand in this gravity. How can I ever lead my people?" Alex's gaze was steady. "Strength isn't just about muscles. It's about resilience. Humans aren't the strongest species in the galaxy, but we've survived things that should have killed us 1,000 times over. If you're willing to try, you'll learn. For the first time, Nyara hesitated. Deep down, she wanted to believe him, but years of ridicule had eroded her confidence. And if I fail? She asked softly. Then you fail trying, Alex replied firmly, but not on my watch. The next morning, training began. Alex tied weights to Nyara's wrists and ankles, instructing her to walk the perimeter of the clearing. The princess grumbled with every step, her legs trembling under the strain. When she fell, Alex didn't scold her, he simply helped her up and said, again. By sunset, Nyara collapsed onto the cabin floor, glaring at Alex. This is torture. No, Alex replied, handing her a glass of water. This is progress. As the stars lit up the night sky, Nyara sat by the window, her body aching but her mind strangely clear. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. Outside, Alex watched her from the porch, a small smile tugging at his lips. The journey ahead would be grueling, but he saw something in her, a spark waiting to ignite. The real training had only just begun. The spark of resilience. The cold morning air clung to Nyara's skin as she stood at the edge of a dense forest, her breath visible in the crisp light of dawn. Alex had woken her before sunrise, his voice as unyielding as the weight tied to her wrists and ankles. She was beginning to hate those weights. Today, you carry the logs, Alex said, gesturing to a small pile of firewood. Nyara frowned, glaring at the uneven terrain ahead. This is pointless. My people don't chop wood. And that's why your people sent you to me, Alex shot back, arms crossed. This isn't about firewood. It's about learning how to adapt. That's how humans survive, we adapt to every challenge, no matter how small. With a frustrated huff, Nyara bent down to lift the first log. The weight felt insurmountable at first, her fingers trembling against the rough bark. But she gritted her teeth and hauled it onto her shoulder, taking shaky steps forward. The uneven ground threatened her balance, and the heavy gravity felt like it was pulling her down with every step. Eyes forward, Alex called out, walking beside her. Focus on where you're going, not where you've been. Falling and rising again. Halfway through the trek, Nyara stumbled on a root and fell, the log slipping from her grasp and rolling away. She slammed her fists into the dirt, frustration boiling over. This is useless, she shouted, her voice breaking. I'll never be like my people. I'll never be strong. Alex knelt beside her, his tone calm but firm. Good. You don't need to be like them. Nyara looked up, tears brimming in her golden eyes. You don't understand. They look at me like I'm broken. Like I'm not worth anything. Alex sat down on the ground next to her, brushing the dirt from her hands. You think I don't get it? I wasn't always like this. Back in school, I was the smallest kid in the class. No one thought I'd amount to much. But I didn't prove them wrong by complaining. I proved them wrong by getting back up every time they knocked me down. Nyara wiped her eyes and glanced at the log. It seemed heavier now, almost mocking her. Alex stood and extended a hand. You don't prove them wrong by giving up. You prove them wrong by finishing what you start. Nyara hesitated, her pride battling her doubt, but she took his hand. Together, they lifted the log back onto her shoulder. One more step, Alex encouraged. And then another. The first victory. By the time they returned to the cabin, Nyara's legs felt like lead, and her shoulders throbbed. She dropped the log onto the pile with a loud thud and collapsed onto the porch steps, breathing hard. Alex crouched beside her, offering a bottle of water. Not bad, he said with a faint smile. You're tougher than you think. Nyara stared at him, trying to gauge if he was mocking her, but his expression was sincere. For the first time, she felt a flicker of pride, small, but undeniable. Cultural clashes and quiet breakthroughs. That evening, Alex prepared a simple stew over the cabin's fireplace. Nyara wrinkled her nose at the earthy smell as he handed her a bowl. "You expect me to eat this?" she asked, eyeing the dish with suspicion. "It's real food," Alex replied, sitting down opposite her. "Not that protein sludge you're used to." Nyara hesitated, but hunger won out. She took a tentative bite and blinked in surprise. "It's not awful." "High praise," Alex said with a grin. Despite their small progress, cultural differences continued to spark arguments. Nyara scoffed at Alex's primitive tools, while Alex teased her for being too royal to use them. But beneath the bickering was a growing sense of mutual respect. The River Challenge. The next day, Alex took Nyara to a nearby river. The water roared past, cold and powerful, its surface glittering in the sunlight. "What now?" Nyara asked, crossing her arms. "Cross it," Alex said simply, pointing to the far bank. Nyara's eyes widened. "You can't be serious. The current will sweep me away." Alex shrugged. "It might. Or you'll figure out how to get across." Nyara hesitated, staring at the rushing water. Her heart pounded as doubt crept in. "And if I fall?" "Then you get back up," Alex replied, his voice steady. "You've got this, princess." "Prove it." Nyara clenched her fists, her jaw tightening. She stepped into the icy water, the cold biting at her legs as the current tugged at her balance. The rocks beneath her feet were slippery, and every step felt like a battle. Halfway across, she slipped, her body plunging into the freezing water. Panic surged as the current dragged her downstream, but Alex's voice cut through the chaos. "Get up, Nyara. You're stronger than this." Kicking hard, she clawed her way to a large rock, pulling herself onto its surface. Her entire body shook from the effort, but she refused to give up. Taking a deep breath, she stood again, her determination outweighing her fear. Step by step, she made her way to the far bank, collapsing onto the grass as Alex jogged up beside her. "Not bad," he said with a nod. "Told you you'd make it." Nyara looked up at him, water dripping from her hair, and for the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. The days on Earth were testing her in ways she had never imagined, but Nyara was beginning to understand the truth behind Alex's words. Strength wasn't about being unbreakable, it was about refusing to stay broken. As she sat by the river that evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she felt something new stirring inside her. A warrior's foundation. The morning sun cast long shadows across the training ground Alex had carved into the forest. A crude punching bag hung from a tree branch, swaying gently in the breeze. Nyara stood before it, her arms crossed and her golden eyes narrowed. "You want me to hit that?" she asked, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Not want. Need," Alex replied, standing a few steps away with his arms crossed. "Show me what you've got." Nyara frowned but stepped forward. Her first punch landed awkwardly, the bag barely moving. Her second strike was no better, her knuckles glancing off the surface. Frustration flared in her chest. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "Your stance is all wrong," Alex said, walking behind her. He gently adjusted her feet, then guided her arms into position. "Keep your feet steady. Use your whole body, not just your arms. Power comes from balance." Nyara sighed but tried again, her movement still clumsy. Alex didn't criticize, he simply repeated, again. Finding her strength. For hours, Nyara worked the bag, her punches gradually becoming stronger and more precise. By midday, her knuckles ached, and her arms felt like lead. She dropped onto the grass, panting. Alex crouched beside her, handing her a canteen of water. "Not bad. You've got some fire in you." Nyara managed a weak smile. "Maybe you're not as useless as a teacher as I thought." Alex chuckled. "Careful, princess. That almost sounded like a compliment. She rolled her eyes but couldn't hide the flicker of pride warming her chest. For the first time, she felt a glimmer of control over her body, a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The campfire reflection. That night, a small fire crackled in the cabin's hearth, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Nyara sat on the floor, staring into the flames. Her muscles ached in places she didn't know existed, but her mind was sharper, her spirit a little less weighed down by doubt. "Do you think I'll ever be strong enough?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. Alex looked up from the gear he was repairing. "I don't think. I know. But strength isn't just about punches and kicks, Nyara. It's about standing up when everything's trying to keep you down." Her gaze dropped to her hands, the faint blue glow of her skin dimmed by exhaustion. "But my people only value physical strength. If I can't match them, I'll always be seen as a failure." Alex leaned forward, his voice steady. "Your people sent you here because they need you to lead, not just lift things. Leadership is about resilience. About proving to yourself, and to them, that you won't break, no matter how hard it gets." Nyara didn't respond, but his words echoed in her mind long after he had returned to his work. The unseen bond. The following morning, Alex handed Nyara a wooden staff. "We're moving on to something new," he said. Nyara raised an eyebrow. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Defend yourself," Alex replied, stepping back and raising his own staff. Before she could protest, he lunged, his strikes quick but controlled. Nyara scrambled to block, her movements clumsy and uncoordinated. Within minutes, her staff was knocked from her hands, and she stumbled backward into the dirt. "This is impossible," she exclaimed, glaring at him. "Not impossible," Alex said, offering her a hand. "Just hard. There's a difference. Now, pick it up." Grudgingly, she retrieved the staff and resumed her stance. Alex attacked again, slower this time, guiding her movements as they sparred. By the end of the session, Nyara's arms trembled, and sweat dripped from her brow, but her strikes had begun to show promise. "You're improving," Alex said with a nod. Nyara rolled her eyes but couldn't help the small smile tugging at her lips. A sudden threat. Later that evening, the peaceful forest was interrupted by the sound of rustling leaves and guttural growls. Alex froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the knife at his belt. "What is it?" Nyara asked, her voice tinged with unease. "Stay behind me," Alex ordered, his eyes scanning the tree-line. From the shadows emerged a pack of creatures, their sleek, fur-covered bodies moving with predatory grace. Their glowing red eyes locked onto Alex and Nyara, hunger evident in their snarls. "Rex hounds," Alex muttered. "Stay calm." Nyara's heart pounded as the largest of the beasts lunged. Alex moved swiftly, slashing at the creature with precision. The others circled, their growls intensifying. When one broke from the pack and charged at Nyara, fear froze her in place. Alex shouted, "Nyara, defend yourself." Her training instincts kicked in. Gripping the staff tightly, she swung with all her might, catching the beast in midair. It yelped and tumbled to the ground, stunned. Adrenaline surged through Nyara as she repositioned herself, ready for the next attack. Together, she and Alex fought off the pack, their movements synchronized despite the chaos. The aftermath. As the last of the Rex hounds retreated into the woods, Nyara dropped her staff, her chest heaving. She looked at Alex, her eyes wide. I did it," she whispered, her voice a mix of disbelief and pride. Alex grinned, clapping her on the shoulder. "Told you you had it in you." For the first time, Nyara felt a sense of accomplishment not tied to her father's expectations or her people's judgment. It was her victory, earned through her own effort and determination. As they walked back to the cabin, the faint glow of Nyara's skin seemed brighter, her steps lighter. She wasn't just surviving Earth anymore, she was starting to thrive. Forged in fire. The forest was alive with the rhythmic thud of fists against the crude punching bag Alex had rigged between two trees. Nyara's knuckles, now roughened and bruised, struck the surface in a steady cadence. Each impact sent a tremor up her arms, but she didn't stop. Not today. Again, Alex said, his voice calm but firm. Nyara growled through gritted teeth, pouring her frustration into the next punch. Her body ached, her muscles protested, but something deeper within her, something she had only recently begun to recognize, drove her forward. Better, Alex acknowledged, stepping closer. But you're still holding back. Why? Nyara paused, breathing heavily. She wiped the sweat from her brow, her golden eyes meeting his. Because I'm afraid I'll fail. That I'll prove them right. Alex crouched to her level, his gaze unwavering. Failure's only final if you stop trying. Out here, there's no counsel, no critics. Just you. Every punch you throw, every step you take, it's a choice. So make it count. The next trial. The following morning, Alex led Nyara deeper into the forest, the sunlight filtering through the dense canopy. He carried a small pack and a strange contraption Nyara hadn't seen before. What now? Nyara asked, her tone equal parts curious and wary. We're going to build a shelter, Alex replied, setting the pack down. Nyara frowned. We have a cabin. Why do we need a shelter? Because the cabin's not always going to be there, Alex said, pulling out tools and rope. Survival isn't about convenience. It's about preparation. He handed her a saw and gestured toward a fallen tree. Start cutting. I'll guide you. At first, Nyara struggled with the tool, her movements jerky and inefficient. But Alex's patient instructions, paired with his relentless refusal to let her quit, helped her find a rhythm. By midday, they had a framework for a sturdy lean-to. Not bad, Alex said, inspecting her work. You're getting the hang of this. Nyara wiped her hands on her trousers, a rare smile breaking through her usual scowl. Maybe I'm finally learning from the galaxy's most stubborn teacher. Alex smirked. Takes one to know one. The lesson in fire. As evening fell, Alex crouched by the lean-to with flint and steel in hand. He struck them together, sending a shower of sparks onto a small pile of kindling. Nyara watched, her brow furrowed. You're starting a fire with rocks. My people use plasma igniters. Plasma's not always an option, Alex replied, his voice calm. Out here, you make do with what you've got. He handed her the tools. Your turn. Nyara groaned but knelt beside him, mimicking his movements. The first few attempts failed, the sparks refusing to catch. Frustration bubbled to the surface. This is pointless, she muttered. It's only pointless if you stop, Alex said, leaning back on his heels. Taking a deep breath, Nyara tried again. This time, the sparks caught, and a small flame flickered to life. Her eyes widened with a mix of surprise and pride as the fire grew under her careful guidance. See? Alex said, a hint of a smile on his face. You're tougher than you think. The midnight attack. Their peace was short-lived. Late that night, as Nyara lay in the lean-to, a low growl echoed through the forest. Her eyes snapped open, her heart pounding. Alex, she whispered, sitting up. He was already awake, crouched near the fire with his knife drawn. Stay low, he instructed, his voice barely audible. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike anything Nyara had ever seen. Its sleek, black fur shimmered in the firelight, and its glowing red eyes locked onto them with predatory intent. A shadow wolf, Alex muttered. Stay calm and follow my lead. The beast lunged without warning. Alex moved swiftly, slashing at the creature's flank, but it was faster than he anticipated. Nyara froze, her instincts battling her fear. Nyara! Alex shouted, his voice cutting through her paralysis. The staff. Her eyes darted to the wooden staff resting nearby. She grabbed it and swung with all her might, the impact catching the wolf mid-leap. It yelped and retreated, circling them with a snarl. Alex positioned himself beside her, his stance steady. We take it down together. Ready? Nyara nodded, gripping the staff tightly. The fight was chaotic, each movement a blur of survival instinct and training. When the wolf finally retreated into the forest, bloodied and defeated, Nyara collapsed onto the ground, her chest heaving. You did good, Alex said, offering her a hand. Nyara looked up at him, her golden eyes filled with a mix of exhaustion and triumph. We did good. A warrior's resolve. As dawn broke over the forest, Nyara stood at the riverbank, staring at her reflection in the rippling water. She barely recognized the figure staring back at her. The frail princess who had arrived on Earth felt like a distant memory. Alex approached, his footsteps soft against the grass. Something on your mind? Nyara turned to him, a newfound determination in her eyes. I'm not there yet. But I will be. Alex nodded, a rare smile tugging at his lips. That's the spirit. The morning training resumed, but this time, Nyara's punches landed harder, her movements sharper. Each strike against the punching bag echoed through the clearing, a testament to her growing strength, not just in body, but in spirit. In that moment, Alex realized something profound. Nyara wasn't just becoming a warrior. She was becoming a leader. And the galaxy would soon take notice. The turning point. The sun hung high in the sky, casting dappled light through the forest canopy. The air was thick with humidity, clinging to Nyara's skin as she crouched low, her focus unbroken. Ahead of her, Alex moved silently through the underbrush, his footsteps light and deliberate. Pay attention, Alex whispered, motioning for her to follow. This isn't just about strength. Survival is as much about your mind as your body. Nyara nodded, mirroring his movements. Her once clumsy steps were now quieter, more precise. The days of training had transformed her, though she hadn't fully realized how much. What are we tracking? Nyara asked under her breath. A lesson, Alex replied cryptically, his eyes scanning the forest floor. The unexpected test. After an hour of tracking, Alex stopped abruptly. Nyara nearly ran into him, her focus momentarily broken. Before she could ask what was wrong, Alex turned to her, his expression serious. Time to see what you've learned, he said, stepping back. Nyara blinked. What do you mean? Alex pointed to a clearing ahead, where a small creature with shimmering scales was rummaging through the undergrowth. Its size was deceptive. Nyara recognized it from the Zanari archives, a shard beast, known for its speed and sharp claws. You need to capture it, Alex said simply. Nyara's jaw dropped. That thing? Are you insane? It's faster than anything I've ever seen. Alex smirked. It is. But you've got something it doesn't, strategy. Use your surroundings. Think before you act. The chase begins. Nyara took a deep breath, her pulse quickening. She studied the shard beast's movements, noting how it darted between patches of shadow. It was skittish, its ears twitching at the slightest sound. Stay low, Alex advised from a distance. And remember, patience. Nyara circled the clearing, her movements slow and deliberate. When she stepped on a twig, the shard beast froze, its glowing eyes locking onto her. It bolted. Without thinking, Nyara lunged after it, her adrenaline surging. The chase was chaotic, the shard beast weaving through trees and over rocks with startling agility. Nyara struggled to keep up, her lungs burning with the effort. Use your environment. Alex's voice echoed in her mind. She spotted a narrow gap between two trees ahead of the creature's path. Acting quickly, she grabbed a fallen branch and jammed it into the gap, creating a makeshift trap. The shard beast darted forward, its speed working against it as it collided with the obstacle. It tumbled, disoriented, giving Nyara the opening she needed. With a burst of energy, she tackled the creature, pinning it to the ground. Its scales felt cool under her hands, and its sharp claws scraped against her armor, but she held firm. "Got you," she muttered, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. A new kind of strength. Alex approached, clapping slowly. "Not bad, princess. Not bad at all." Nyara released the shard beast, watching as it scampered back into the forest. She collapsed onto the ground, her body trembling from exertion. "That was intense," she said between breaths. Alex crouched beside her, offering her a flask of water. "That wasn't just about catching the beast. It was about proving to yourself that you could." Nyara looked at him, the weight of his words sinking in. "I'm starting to think you're enjoying these little tests." Alex chuckled. "Maybe. Or maybe I just know you're capable of more than you think." The bond deepens. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Nyara felt a shift in the air between them. The animosity that had marked their first days together was gone, replaced by a growing camaraderie. "You've changed," Alex said, breaking the comfortable silence. Nyara raised an eyebrow. "You mean I'm not whining about everything anymore?" Alex smirked. "Something like that. You've got grit now. A fire in you. And it's only getting stronger." Nyara stared into the flames, her expression thoughtful. "I never thought I'd feel this way. Like I'm finally, enough." Alex leaned back, his gaze steady. "You've always been enough. You just needed to see it for yourself." The arrival of the shadows. Their moment of calm was shattered by the distant hum of engines. Nyara and Alex exchanged a glance, their instincts kicking into high alert. "Stay here," Alex said, rising to his feet. Nyara grabbed her staff, standing beside him. "Not a chance." Through the trees emerged a small group of Zanari soldiers, their armor gleaming under the moonlight. At their head was a tall, imposing figure, General Kale, one of the king's most trusted advisors. "Princess Nyara," Kale said, his tone clipped. "Your father sent us to retrieve you." Nyara's heart sank. She hadn't expected this. "Not now. I'm not ready," she said, her voice trembling. Kale's expression hardened. "You don't have a choice. The council grows restless, and the king needs you back on Aralath Prime." Alex stepped forward, his stance protective. "She's not leaving until she's ready." Kale sneered. "And who are you to decide that? You're nothing but a human mercenary." Nyara surprised even herself by stepping between them. Her voice, steady and resolute, carried a weight she hadn't known she possessed. "He's the one who taught me what strength really means," she said. "And I'll leave when I decide I'm ready." Kale stared at her, clearly taken aback by her defiance. For a moment, the forest was silent, the tension palpable. Finally, Kale nodded. "Very well. But don't take too long, princess. The galaxy won't wait forever." As the soldiers disappeared into the night, Nyara turned to Alex. "I need to be ready," she said, determination burning in her golden eyes. Alex nodded, his expression proud. "Then let's get to work." The test of leadership. The forest clearing buzzed with tension as Nyara stood before Alex, her breathing measured, her staff firmly gripped in both hands. The air felt heavier than usual, laden with the weight of what was to come. "This is your final challenge," Alex said, his voice steady. He gestured to a circle of stones he'd arranged in the dirt. Inside the ring, various weapons and tools lay scattered, simple but effective. Nyara glanced at the weapons, then back at Alex. "What's the challenge?" "You'll defend this circle," Alex explained. "Not just with strength, but with strategy. Out here, survival doesn't come to those who fight hardest. It comes to those who fight smartest. She raised an eyebrow. And who am I defending it from? Alex smirked. Me. The first strike. Before Nyara could react, Alex lunged, his movements quick and deliberate. She barely managed to block his strike, her staff trembling under the force. Stay focused, Alex barked, stepping back to circle her. Anticipate, adapt, react. Nyara tightened her grip, her golden eyes locked on his every movement. When Alex feinted to her left, she pivoted, deflecting his attack and countering with a swift jab. Good, Alex said, retreating. But don't celebrate yet. I'm just getting started. The unexpected twist. As the fight continued, Nyara began to notice Alex's subtle shifts in rhythm. He wasn't just testing her reflexes, he was testing her ability to read the situation. When he suddenly darted outside the circle and grabbed a handful of dirt, Nyara's instincts screamed a warning. As Alex threw the dirt into the air to obscure her vision, she dropped to one knee, lowering her head just in time to avoid the cloud. Impressive, Alex said, his tone betraying a hint of pride. But Nyara wasn't done. She grabbed a nearby rope from the ground and swung it toward him, wrapping it around his ankle. With a sharp tug, she sent him sprawling to the ground. Alex laughed as he rolled to his feet. You're starting to think like a survivor. That's progress. A leader's burden. As the duel slowed, Alex lowered his weapon and stepped out of the circle. Nyara frowned, confused by his sudden retreat. That's enough, he said, his voice softer now. You've proven you can fight. But being a leader is more than that. Nyara let her staff fall to her side, her brow furrowed. What do you mean? Alex motioned toward the edge of the clearing, where the injured shard beast she had captured days earlier lay in a makeshift enclosure. Its leg was bandaged, and it watched them warily, its scales glinting in the sunlight. You didn't just defeat that creature, Alex said. You chose to help it. To heal it. That's the kind of strength your people need, a leader who knows when to fight and when to protect. Nyara approached the shard beast, her hand resting on the enclosure. The creature didn't flinch, its trust hard-won through her care. For the first time, Nyara saw herself through Alex's eyes, not as a fragile princess, but as someone capable of making choices that mattered. The return of the Zanari soldiers. Before Nyara could fully process the moment, the hum of engines filled the clearing. The Zanari soldiers had returned, their ships hovering just above the treetops. General Kale stepped forward, his expression as cold and unreadable as ever. Your time is up, princess. The council demands your presence. Nyara straightened, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She turned to Alex, her golden eyes searching his face for reassurance. You're ready, he said simply. Kale sneered. We'll see about that. The final test. As they boarded the Zanari ship, Nyara felt a strange mix of fear and determination. The journey back to Aralath Prime was brief, but her mind raced with doubts. Would her people see her as a failure? Had her training truly prepared her for what was to come? When the ship landed in the grand chamber of the royal palace, the council was already assembled. Their eyes bore into Nyara as she stepped forward, her shoulders squared despite the tension in the room. General Kale addressed the council, his voice sharp. The princess has returned from her unorthodox training. Let us see if she is fit to lead. A series of challenges were presented, tests of strength, strategy, and diplomacy. Nyara faced each one with a calm resolve, her training with Alex guiding her through every obstacle. When Kale challenged her to a sparring match, she stood her ground, her movements precise and deliberate. She didn't overpower him, but she outmaneuvered him, her strikes calculated and efficient. By the end of the match, Kale was on his knees, panting, while Nyara stood above him, her staff pointed at his chest. The princess is no longer weak, she said, her voice steady. And I will no longer be judged by outdated notions of strength. The council was silent, their skepticism replaced by a begrudging respect. The galaxy takes notice. As the session ended, King Zirith approached his daughter, his expression a mix of pride and relief. "You've proven them wrong," he said quietly. Nyara shook her head. "I didn't do this to prove them wrong. I did this to prove to myself that I could lead." From the shadows, Alex watched, a small smile on his face. He knew her journey was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy had underestimated Nyara. That would never happen again. The rise of a legend. The grand halls of Aralath Prime were silent, a sharp contrast to the murmurs and chaos that had marked Nyara's last appearance here. This time, she wasn't escorted in shame or doubt. She strode into the chamber with purpose, her golden eyes scanning the faces of the Zenari Council. Whispers rippled through the room as she entered, her once frail frame now carrying a quiet strength. The scars on her knuckles and the determination in her gaze spoke of a transformation that couldn't be ignored. At the center of the chamber stood General Kale, his expression unreadable. His presence wasn't a formality, it was a challenge. "Princess Nyara," Kale said, his voice echoing in the vast space. "The council acknowledges your return. But strength is not claimed with words. It must be proven." The arena of trials. The council rose in unison, their robes shimmering under the crystalline lights. One of the elders, his voice ancient and deliberate, declared, by tradition, the heir to the throne must demonstrate their worth through the trials of leadership. "Do you accept this challenge, Princess Nyara?" Nyara stepped forward, her voice steady. "I accept." The arena was vast, an open expanse surrounded by towering walls. The audience of Zenari nobles and citizens watched in tense silence as Nyara entered, her staff strapped to her back and her movements purposeful. 3 trials, Kale announced from a raised platform. Strength, strategy, and resolve. Pass all 3, and the throne is yours. Fail, and you will step aside. Trial 1, the test of strength. The first trial was simple in design but brutal in execution. Nyara faced a mechanical beast engineered to mimic the power and ferocity of a shard beast. The machine's metallic claws gleamed as it charged, its speed and strength designed to overwhelm. Nyara stood her ground, her grip tightening on her staff. When the beast lunged, she sidestepped with practiced precision, striking its exposed flank. The staff vibrated with the impact, but she didn't waver. The battle was relentless, but Nyara's training had prepared her for this. She used the creature's momentum against it, luring it into overcommitting before landing decisive blows. With a final strike to its core, the beast collapsed, its circuit sparking as it powered down. The crowd erupted into cheers, but Nyara's focus remained unbroken. She turned to Kale, her expression calm. "One down," she said simply. Trial 2, the test of strategy. The next trial was a test of intellect. Nyara was placed in a simulated battlefield, where she had to command a fleet of ships against an enemy force. The holographic display shimmered as she studied the situation. "Your enemy outnumbers you," Kale said, his tone deliberately condescending. "A true leader knows when to surrender." Nyara ignored him, her mind racing. She recalled Alex's lessons, his constant reminder, adapt. Think 3 steps ahead. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, she devised a trap. Using her smaller fleet as bait, she drew the opposing ships into an asteroid field. When the enemy overextended, she launched a surprise attack, disabling their flagship and forcing the remaining ships to retreat. As the simulation ended, Kale's expression betrayed a flicker of surprise. Nyara had not only won but done so with minimal losses. The council murmured in approval. Trial 3, the test of resolve. For the final trial, Kale himself stepped into the arena. He wore traditional Zenari combat armor, his weapon a massive ceremonial blade that dwarfed Nyara's staff. "This is where we see your true strength," Kale said, his voice low and threatening. Nyara's heart pounded, but she steadied herself. This wasn't just a fight, it was a statement. Kale attacked first, his strikes powerful and deliberate. Nyara dodged and parried, her smaller weapon forcing her to rely on speed and precision. Each swing of Kale's blade sent shockwaves through the arena, but Nyara refused to yield. The duel stretched on, her endurance tested to its limits. When Kale aimed a devastating blow at her midsection, Nyara rolled under it, using her momentum to strike his knee. He staggered, and she capitalized, disarming him with a calculated strike to his wrist. Kale fell to one knee, his blade clattering to the ground. Nyara stood over him, her staff poised but her strike withheld. "You have the power to end this," Kale said, his voice laced with both challenge and respect. "What will you do, princess?" Nyara lowered her staff, extending a hand to him. "A leader doesn't destroy their people. They unite them. The crown and the future." The council erupted into applause as Kale rose, nodding in acknowledgement of her victory. Nyara turned to face the crowd, her chest heaving but her spirit unbroken. King Zirith stepped forward, his voice carrying the pride of a father and a ruler. "The princess has passed the trials. She is no longer just an heir. She is a leader." The crowd roared, their cheers reverberating through the chamber. A new kind of strength. That evening, Nyara stood on the palace balcony, gazing at the stars. She felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders but also the steady fire of determination within her. Alex joined her, leaning casually against the railing. "You did it," he said, his voice soft. Nyara smiled faintly. "I couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head. "I just gave you the tools. You're the one who decided to use them." Nyara turned to him, her golden eyes bright. "You're staying, right? As my advisor?" Alex grinned. "As long as you'll have me, princess." "No," she corrected, her voice carrying the confidence of a true leader. "Not a princess. A warrior." As the stars lit up the night sky, Nyara knew this was only the beginning. Her journey had forged her into more than just a ruler, it had made her a symbol of strength, resilience, and unity. And the galaxy would never forget her name.